Today I'm painting a mysterious landscape. I'm using the Stuart Semple watercolor palette and 140-pound paper. So we are going to start with some yellow paint and we are going to form a kind of rainbow pattern. You can choose any colors that you like. I'm blending the yellow into the orange, into the magenta. We are working wet on dry, which is wet paint onto a dry paper, and we are blending the colors as we go. I'm using a decent sized brush and just doing large strokes and just letting the colors blend into each other. So now I'm adding some blue. The purple is blending into the blue. If you have any little white spots, you can fill them in with the tip of your brush. Now I'm going to go in with some green. I love the Stuart Semple palette because it has such beautiful, vibrant colors, and the colors have such fun names. I will link up all my materials in the description below the video. So we are just starting with a bit of a rainbow shape. You are going to do this in the middle of your paper. You can put it a little off to one side if you like. It's always nice to have a symmetry. So now I'm blending some reds to the left side of the yellow and orange and just bringing another blue across the top. The first time I did this project, I really had no end goal in mind, and I just was winging it and came up with a really cool landscape like this. So that was my first attempt, and now I'm just trying to replicate that painting. So we're just making a little kind of half circle rainbow shape, which will be our landscape, and going down into a bit of a point. So this is our basic shape, and now I'm going to do a little swoop across the bottom, which will be the horizon line. So we're just going to use a kind of brown. You could use a burnt umber, any color that you want. This is just going to be the ground line, bringing it across, making sure that it touches the other paints. And now we're going to get a greeny color, and you'll see the brown blends into the green. And you can wiggle your brush a bit. You don't have to have it a smooth line. It looks a little more organic if you wiggle your brush a little bit and you vary the pressure on your brush. So when you push it down, the line is thicker, and when you lift the brush, the line is thinner. I'm just filling in the little white areas. If you miss any paper, you can just fill in those little blobs of white. And now we're just blending. So now I'm going to dry it. I want this to be dry before the next stage. And I'm going to go in with a black and just do a bit of a horizon line. Now if you don't want pure black, you can mix it with another color. Sometimes I use Payne's Gray, but I want this to be a little bit more silhouette-y. So I'm going to use the black. And just, again, with a very fine brush, you can wiggle it a little bit so it's not a straight line. And we want to make a line between the sky and the ground. And you can vary the width of that line. And now I'm just blending it out a little bit. Could add a little water to blend it below the line. So once we've done that line and we're happy with it, we're going to do the trees. I'm using the same fine brush. It's not a long brush, it's just a small brush. And we are going to get the black paint, and you'll see the technique to do the branches is we're just going to wiggle out those lines. So start in the middle, wiggle them out a little bit. And you don't want all the branches to be the same length. We want it to look more realistic, more organic. So we're getting our brush and we're just going to wiggle out those branches. And don't worry, you can always touch them up after. We just want to get the basic design for the tree and wiggle out those little branches. Some are going to be longer, some are going to be shorter. If you need a reference, you can always look up trees on Google to find some images, either photos or graphics. These are more like a kind of evergreen tree, the kind you'll see in the forest. And we're just going to go and keep working on our branches. This is in real-time speed. Sometimes I speed up my videos, but you're just seeing me painting it in real time. I'm actually chit-chatting with my sister on Zoom as I am painting this picture. So we're going to start in the middle and work our way out. Don't worry if it gets a little blobby in places. It actually makes it look more realistic when you have some blobs here and there. In fact, you can add blobs after. So you see how the tree is coming together. It's just like magic. Such a beautiful process, very meditative. And you can go back into the previous branches if you need to thicken them up in spots. Now I'm going in with a fine brush. This is like a liner brush, and we're making some grass. So we're starting at the horizon line and pushing the brush up and lifting it. So you push up and lift to make those fine grasses. I did another tree, and now we're doing the last tree. It's always nice to do an uneven number. It's nice when art is more asymmetrical. So I chose to do 3 trees. You can do more if you like. And you can go in and fill out those branches a little more if you need to. And now I'm going to go back to the grass, starting at the horizon line, and lift. So you dip your paint, put down your brush, and lift it up. So it's nice and crisp and has a nice sharp end. And vary the length of your grasses so it looks more interesting. Some are short, some are long. And we're going to carry our grasses right across to the end. So take your time with it. And once you have them all done, now we're going to do a fun background. So I'm just grabbing a big brush, getting some watery black and blue. You can use a thick brush as well. Make sure the paint is quite watery, but you want it opaque enough so it's going to make a nice contrast. I have 3 sizes of brush, a flat one and some round ones. And you can just go in and play with it. So get the overall background painted. And then after that you can darken it up a bit if you need to. So just going in with different sizes of brushes. In this one I used a slightly smaller brush than in my original one. So it just depends on what effect that you like. Make sure you bring the paint right to the edge of the rainbow without covering up that paint. You just want it to go right to the edge to make a nice contrast. I'm adding some green. And you're working, blending the colors as you go. So you can work quickly so the paint stays wet. Go right to the edge of that landscape and fill in all the whole background of the paper. And you can always afterwards crop the piece if you find you have too much background and not enough landscape. You can easily crop this once it's dry. But we're going to go in, fill it all in, and I've actually taped my paper down so it won't buckle. I always recommend doing that. And I'm darkening it up a little more, adding more blue, and I'll add some more black. We just want to make a nice contrast. It almost looks like a cave. It looks like stone or something. I really like the effect of this, and the first time I did it, it was just on a whim. I was just playing with the paint. I had no end goal in mind, but I really like the way it turned out, and it makes for a fun project. It actually reminds me of some old paintings I made when I was a kid. Just the very loose style, super fun. There's no right or no wrong. We're just darkening it up a little bit to make a nice contrast, nice texture, adding some blue, adding some green, and there's the finished piece. And here's the original one I did with slightly larger brush strokes.